Good morning, everybody. Sorry I'm a day late in getting lesson one posted. Just being out last week put me a little bit behind, but hey, catching up today. So we are finally at the World Wars. Pretty exciting time. The last 6 weeks in this class, we've got World War I, the Russian Revolution, World War II, and the Holocaust. So major stuff going on. It's highly interesting and very impactful, clearly, to the 20th century these last 6 weeks. So we are starting out lesson one with World War One, and your bell ringer yesterday was asking, what does the acronym MAIN stand for in regards to World War One? And it's an incredibly important piece to understanding the overall causes of the conflict. And anytime that I've talked to you guys about conflict, I've said, you have to understand the why before you can get to like the exciting blood and guts part, right? So it's where everybody always wants to go first is like, let's start talking about the battles and the blood and guts. But you have to understand why conflict starts before you can do anything else. And MAIN, the acronym MAIN, helps you do just that. Okay, it stands for militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. Now, a lot of this we've already gone over pretty extensively in Unit 11. Okay, we talked about imperialism, the scramble for Africa, the imperialistic tendencies in Asia, especially after the Opium Wars and creating spheres of influence, nationalism in terms of the revolutions of 1848. And of course, industrialization is going to increase militarism because, like I said, they have all of their shiny new toys to play with. And they, of course, are being mass produced due to the new mechanized industry. So, the alliances pieces, that's the only portion of the acronym MAIN that I haven't talked to you guys about, but we're going to be talking about that today. So whenever you are looking at questions in the future in regards to, hey, explain to me, why World War One happened, this is a huge piece of that puzzle that you're going to need to be able to, explain and expand upon. So, all right, let's kind of break them down. All right, these two statements right here, like I was telling the students yesterday in class, I feel like they are very blanket statements that pretty much explain all of history and any conflict, like throughout any era. And it's it's going to be no different in the early 1900s. You've got European nation states regarding themselves as subject to no higher interest or authority. They're guided by their own self-interest and success. And most leaders, of course, feel that war is an acceptable way to preserve the power of their state. I mean, again, those are blanket statements that are applicable to any era of history with any nation state, and it's no different during World War One. Of course, people are going to feel like war is an acceptable way to preserve their own power, and Europe at this time is in a huge state of competition with each other because of imperialism, because of that scramble for Africa, because of they're trying to create spheres of influence in China and Asia, and they're trying to beat each other out. It's just like any other competitive mentality. You want to win. And I've told y'all from Unit 1, land equals power. And so that imperialistic tendencies of, I want more land, we want more, conquer, it's because that feeds more power into the mother country. So, again, it's heightening existing rivalries. It's heightening tension amongst these major powers in Europe, which is just going to lead to war. Nationalism, along with imperialism, is another big part because you have people that now are, wanting their nations to be powerful because they feel as if they have a stake in it now, right? Like, lots of revolutions have happened. You have new republics, and people are now proud of their countries and ethnicities because of themselves, not because of some royal family. And that kind of spurs on competition as well. And there's nothing wrong with being nationalistic. Being proud to be XYZ. Okay. Nationalism can turn into a problem when it's I'm proud to be XYZ and you should be just like us and we are the best and we are awesome and y'all suck, and like that's when it turns into not a good thing anymore. And that mentality tends to kind of take over when you have a highly competitive environment like Europe was in the early 1900s. Another part of the reason why nationalism helped spur on World War I is you also have a large amount of ethnic minorities, especially in the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and they are all wanting their own new nation state. And you've actually had in the early 1900s two crises happen in the Balkans, which the Balkans, if you'll look at this map right in front of you, is the peninsula just to the east of the Italian peninsula. Okay, so like the southernmost country within the Balkan Peninsula is Greece. And so like that whole area is known as the Balkans. And there had been two crises over ethnic minorities fighting for independence and having their own nation states in the early 1900s. And Serbia in particular is a country I want you to kind of keep in your brain because it's going to come back up again, because they are a new nation state of ethnic Slavic minorities that are wanting to see other ethnic Slavic minorities have their own nation states created, and therefore they are funneling money and weapons into the Austro-Hungarian Empire, hoping to create additional conflict that leads to these nation states. And that's going to be a big part of the foundation of why World War I gets started. And so again, kind of tuck that into the back of your head because it's gonna come back here in just a second. All right, militarism, shiny new toys. I mean, hello, machine guns, new big iron ships. Unfortunately, mustard gas. I mean, like, trucks. I mean, like you've got all kinds of stuff that are now new to the playing field when it comes to war. And armies are doubling in size through conscription or military draft between 1890 and 1914. And it's because it's a domino effect, right? Like if the German spies hear that Great Britain has doubled their standing army over the last 6 months, and they are, practicing these incredible new maneuvers and tactics with their new equipment and weaponry. Germany is going to turn around and be like, oh, well, then we need to triple our our standing army and be doing the same. And so, again, it just builds amongst the most powerful countries in Western Europe. And so you have a lot of militarism taking place. You have your military leaders that are itching to kind of prove themselves in this new stuff, and that helps heighten tension as well. Industrialization is a huge component of militarism. In all reality, if I could, and it would be spelled correctly, I would honestly add an additional I into the acronym MAIN, and that additional I be industrialism. But you can easily tie it right into militarism. I mean, it goes basically as a subheading right underneath it. And so, you have mass armies, mass amounts of these new weapons, because again, it's they're getting pumped out of factories. So just the readiness for war was there. And then here's that alliance piece. This is kind of the one thing we haven't talked about, prior to this unit. So in 1882, you're going to have the Triple Alliance form between Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. And then in 1907, you have the Triple Entente that is created, that is France, Great Britain, and Russia. And this is very, very common in any type of competition, right? Like, ooh, you want to be on our side. You want to be on our team. We're the best. We're going to win if something were to happen. It's sectioning off who your buddies are, who your pals are, who's got your back. If you will notice, one major shift in the world that happens during World War I is Great Britain and France become buddies. In my class, they have always been arch enemies, but they actually sign what becomes known as the what is it called? The Entente Cordiale, I believe is what it's called. And it is basically a pact between Great Britain and France in the late early 1900s that says, like, hey, we're going to be friends now, because it actually serves our interests both a lot better if we get along and we kind of help each other out. And so they actually set centuries of rivalry and hatred kind of aside and become allies. And Great Britain and France will actually continue to be that from then on. And so it's a big shift as far as world standings go. I had a lot of students yesterday go like, time out, wait a minute, like, aren't they, like, don't they hate each other? And I'm like, well, they do until World War I. So Maine, militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. These are really the main causes of World War I. Everyone is sitting on go. That's the biggest thing that I want you to understand. A lot of times, if you were to grab somebody, just off the street that has at least some sense about them and asked, hey, why did World War I start? The textbook answer is usually going to be, well, that guy got assassinated. And that is definitely the spark that led to World War I. But the assassination of an archduke in Sarajevo should not have created the conflict that becomes World War I. That should have been an issue that was dealt with between Austria-Hungary and Serbia, and that was pretty much it. But because of all of these reasons just discussed, it blew into the First World War. And that's something that I really want you guys to understand. It wasn't just all about this assassination of this guy that we're fixing to talk about. They were all ready to go, waiting for a reason. And his assassination gave them that reason. So let's talk about it. On this map, everything in color is the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and every single color is an ethnic group. So that should show you clearly how ethnically diverse the Austro-Hungarian Empire was. So they have a bit of a issue on their hands in a lot of ways, because all of these minorities, these ethnic minorities, are now kind of seeking and wanting their own nation state. That's that nationalism component coming in. Serbia, which you can kind of see, it's a little bit behind the box here, but Serbia is funneling, again, money and weaponry into specifically the Bosnian population of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And again, wanting them to create conflict so that they have a Bosnian state. And specifically, they are doing this with an domestic terrorist organization known as the Black Hand Gang. And the Black Hand Gang are going to be responsible for the assassination of Franz Ferdinand and his wife. So Gavrila Princip, he and this other guy whose name is like all consonants, and I don't know how to describe it, or I don't know how to say it because it's a typical like Slavic name. They are actually going to try and assassinate the Archduke and his wife while in Sarajevo. And that morning on one of their like little diplomatic trips around the city and stuff, and they fail. Okay, they don't get them, and so they go in to a sandwich shop because I mean, hey, even assassins have to eat, and they're eating their lunch, and the motorcade of the Archduke and his wife take a wrong turn. And when they realize that they have gotten off track, they actually like stop. This is what's so crazy. They stop right in front of this sandwich shop where Gavrilo and his fellow assassin are having lunch. And the Archduke and his wife are in an open-aired vehicle. And so he is able to literally just like walk out of the shop, boom, boom, and run off. And so that is how they are assassinated. It's crazy. It's almost as if like it was fated to happen. And I'm not one that easily says that, but that's just kind of one of those kind of freak situations. And being the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, clearly Austria-Hungary is going to be pretty upset about this. And the next thing is Austria-Hungary knows that Serbia was definitely behind this and aided these two Bosnian men in the assassination, but they can't prove it. Okay. And Austria-Hungary has been on the just steady decline, really. And we've talked about this before for several centuries now. And, they know they can go after Serbia. Okay. They know that. However, Serbia is protected and backed by Russia. Okay, if you'll remember, the Crimean War created enemies out of Austria and Russia. And so Russia, of course, is going to thwart any power hold that Austria tries to have. And they're going to kind of like hide behind, oh, well, we're trying to protect the Slavic minorities of this continent. And that's okay, that's a part of it. But it's also Russia just trying to make sure that Austria stays weakened and maybe even becomes more weakened. So Austria wants to avenge the death. I mean, rightfully so. But they know they can't go after Serbia and Russia. So what they do, and again, as always, I want you guys to watch these videos. They help drive home the content. So what they do is they have to go and ask their ally, their strongest ally, Germany, to back them up. Like, hey, we're going to deal with this. Okay. We're going to declare on Serbia, but we have a feeling Russia's probably going to get involved, and this is where we're going to need your help. Well, the Kaiser of Germany, William II, was actually really good friends with Franz Ferdinand and his wife. Loved him, thought a lot of the guy. And so the Kaiser was not only felt politically responsible to help his ally avenge the death and the assassination of their heir, but he was also emotionally tied to it. He was very, very upset and devastated at Franz Ferdinand and his wife's deaths. So the Kaiser gives them what becomes known as the blank check promise. And this is just, yes, we fully support you in your endeavors to attack Serbia. If anything else happens to come about because you attack Serbia, hey, we've got your back. Okay. So, of course, Russia, in its determination to support Serbia, once Austria-Hungary declares war on them, starts to mobilize their army. Well, in 1914, mobilization of your army is considered an act of war. It's not an official declaration of war, but it is considered an act of war. So Russia begins to mobilize its army, and Germany basically says, stop what you're doing now and turn your army back around. Russia does not listen. They keep coming. So Germany declares war on Russia on August 1st. Okay, so let's just kind of look at the timeline just for a second. Austria declares war. Let's just back up even all the way to the assassination. The assassination of Franz Ferdinand happens on June 28th, 1914. Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia On July 28th, so 30 days later, 1914, Russia immediately starts mobilizing its army. Germany says, stop what you're doing. They don't. So Germany declares war on Russia on August 1st. But remember, mobilization of an army is considered an act of war. Germany just simply said, okay, if you're not going to stop, I consider this an act of war. We are declaring on you. So really, by Russia mobilizing, it was an unofficial declaration of war. Okay, Russia, remember, and France and Great Britain are all allies. Here France is with Germany and Russia now at war with each other. France is just on the other side of Germany. You kind of have to have the European map in your brain. France is going, hey, woo, like, we need to make sure that our borders are protected if Germany is now, like, going to be engaged in fighting with one of our allies. So France begins mobilizing their army towards the French and German border. Germany's like, France, what are you doing? France continues to mobilize. Germany declares war on France by August 3rd. So, I mean, guys, you have to look at this in terms of, again, you don't have war break out amongst these major powers, these major of powers of Europe, okay, in like 4 or 5 days' time, unless they aren't already ready for it, okay? And so Great Britain is the only outlier, right? We've talked, all right, so Austria declared on Serbia, Russia mobilizes its troops, Germany declares on Russia, France mobilizes its troops, Germany declares on France. So the only one that really isn't involved out of the major groups is Great Britain, right? Out of the major nations. Well, Great Britain was hesitant to get involved, but they were the kind of protecting nation of Belgium at the time. Belgium was a new nation state, okay? And they were neutral. They were like, we're neutral, we're staying out of this. But of course, they're right smack dab between Germany and France. And tactically speaking, going through Belgium, which is north, okay, was better for Germany to hit Paris, okay? And so Germany had what was known as the Schlieffen Plan, which was gain access into northern France through Belgium, even though they're neutral. It's just tactically the better spot to do this with. Great Britain told Germany, don't do it, don't do it. This is the spot where Germany looks a little guilty in terms of being like the main aggressor, which I want you to keep that into the back of your brain because Germany is going to be completely blamed for World War I. Okay, when in all reality, if you're following me in all of this, they're all to blame. Okay, but because they lose, it's and because honestly, they were Great Britain's greatest economic rival, they got the entire blame saddled on them. And I cannot stress this enough. This is going to come back up in the next unit, guys. That right there, Germany being completely blamed for World War I in what becomes known as the War Guilt Clause of the Treaty of Versailles is what directly leads to World War II. Okay? The end of World War I creates World War II. So I need you to, again, like look at this really in terms of not just this lesson and this moment. Like this is going to have massive effects over not just this unit, but the next unit as well. So when they don't adhere to the warnings of Great Britain saying stay out of Belgium, and they do invade through Belgium, this is when Great Britain will declare on Germany on August 4th. But guys, between July 28th and August 4th, 1914, you have every major power of Europe declare on each other. That doesn't just happen. You don't have that kind of domino effect of declarations of war happen unless, again, they aren't ready to go and waiting on something to give them a reason. And again, the assassination of Franz Ferdinand did just that. So, the last slide of this lesson is who's to blame. Like I said, they all are. Okay. Each nation believed that it was justified in declaring war or going to war or mobilizing their army. You know, But in the end, the assassination of Austrian's heir in Sarajevo should not have led to this. So that is where we will end for today. Lesson 2 is like looking at the actual war and how it all went down. The blood and guts parts of it. It will probably take Thursday and Friday to complete. So just kind of understand that. This is what I want you to watch today as your only assignment for this remote learning day. Tomorrow I'll be out, but you have an assignment that I want you to complete that is for a grade over the causes of World War I. So if you have any questions, as always, just shoot me an email, and I will see you guys Thursday.